Welcome, everyone. My name is Taylor Leitner, and we're so delighted that you've joined us today for this discussion. We're trying to bring together the S-STEM staff and scholars, and feel free to use the chat box throughout this discussion and submit any comments or questions that you might have. We've also dedicated Q&A time toward the end of this conversation, so we'll be sure to answer any questions that you might have been burning to ask as you came here. So this session is being recorded, and it will be available on our website at stem.AAAS.org/webinar. At the end, we will have a link for a quick survey. Please take a few minutes to provide us with the feedback about your experience. So today's goal are to explore the strategies for mentoring that matters and recognizing what stories and strategies that we can learn from S-STEM PIs and scholars and their peers. Next slide. We will have a 90-minute, no, it's actually only 60-minute agenda that includes networking with S-STEM PIs, open discussion, and interactive QA. But first off, we want to start off with an icebreaker. And I encourage you to take your camera off mute or write in the chat if your mentor relationship was a famous duo like Batman and Robin or peanut butter and jelly, what would it be and why? And so we'll give you some time to answer that. Also, feel free to unmute. Go first. Oh, I see one from Monica Parker. Strangers in the Night. I actually have never seen that one due to communication difficulties. Okay, that makes sense. Would you like to explain more? PB and J stick together through the hard times. Okay, it will get hard, I'm assuming. Diet Coke and Mentos. That's explosive. I'm assuming maybe like a vibe like it's fire, or is it like corrosive in a way? I don't know. You might want to explain.
I don't know if corrosive is the word. As things do tend to ramp up pretty quickly,
Okay.
it's
Okay.
seemingly out of nowhere.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Katie, we have this is a good question, but my creativity shot at the end of the semesters. I'm sorry. I can go and give you my idea. I would say that me, Mercy, and our president is like the Powder Puff Girls. If I was to call our mentor something, is like we all like, woo! It's a team fighting mojo or something. All right, Bert and Ernie, lots of mistakes made, but remain friends. Okay, that's always positive. Oh, someone said they can't unmute. Is that something about the Zoom? I do feel like an aunt sometimes, almost like a mom, but more cool than a mom. I mentor freshmen. So you're the cool mom, the soccer mom that brings the snacks. Marguerite, we got pepperoni pizza. Yes. Have to the base for the star of the show. Pepperoni. Support the mentor and star mentee. Awesome. They're not even separated, and I love that. All right, great. So I'm sorry you all couldn't unmute, but you all share some great examples. So as we hear from the other panelists and students today, think about that and what those descriptions might look like and how they actually show in practice. Got it. All right, thank you. Next slide. So here's our outline for today. I'm going to provide an overview of the S-STEM Rec, and we'll talk about the webinar objectives, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague, Dr. Mercy Mugo, for the discussion. Next slide. So awesome. The S-STEM's program's vision is to increase the success of low-income, academically talented students with demonstrated financial need who are pursuing bachelor's degrees in STEM fields. So this program is about building a stronger S-STEM workforce while fostering innovation across the nation. The S-STEM Resource and Evaluation Center, or the REC, serves as a hub connecting over 600 funded S-STEM programs nationwide. So we create infrastructure, build community, and share knowledge about effective strategies to support students in STEM. Next. And this is our hierarchy. Looks like I already talked through that as well. So our objectives today are to explore innovative approaches to mentoring that support low-income students in STEM fields. We're going to learn firsthand accounts of successful mentor-student relationships and honestly, any of those impacts of negative mentor and student relationship pairs as well, and their impact on their academic and professional achievement. And lastly, we'll understand what those key strategies are for building effective mentor-student relationships that foster student success. And I'll hand it over to my wonderful colleague, Dr. Mercy Mugo.
Thank you, Taylor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mercy Mugo. I'm the Executive Director at QM Network, one of the partners on the AAAS S-STEM project. As Taylor mentioned, during this session, we will hear from a distinguished panel who bring a wealth of experience and insights as PIs or mentors or scholars or mentees on S-STEM projects. They'll share their perspectives on what it takes to forge meaningful mentor-mentee relationship, as well as some of the approaches that have been successful in their setting. Without further ado, I'll introduce our panelists, and we'll start with the Denison University team. I'll start with Ms. Kalia Lopez, who is a third-year undergraduate student pursuing a double major in environmental studies and biology with a minor in Spanish. She hopes to attend graduate school and pursue a career in entomological research. Next to Ms. Lopez is her great mentor, Dr. Jessica Retting, who has been teaching at Denison University, a small liberal arts college in Ohio since the fall of 2000. She's currently a full professor in biology department and the director of the Global Health Program. And she teaches introductory and advanced courses in biology and in global health. Dr. Retting's graduate training centered on ecology and evolutionary biology. She earned her PhD from Michigan State University, completing much of her research at the Michigan State University's Kellogg Biological Station. As the director of the Denison's S-STEM program, Dr. Retting collaborates with science faculty and campus offices to implement a suite of 4 mentoring pathways for students in the sciences. This includes academic mentoring, peer mentoring, research mentoring, and career mentoring. Each semester, Dr. Retting engages in events, in the S-STEM projects and activities in each of those mentoring pathways, with activities tailored to the scholars' collegiate progression. For example, juniors, sophomores, and first-year scholars engage in different career mentoring activities or experiences with different mentoring opportunities. Next is our team from Ladma College. We have Mr. Anastasio Bonholm, who is a student and a peer tutor. His research area of focus centers in zoology, centering on physiology and animal behavior. He's also working remotely for Cornell University and Thomas Johnson University as a visiting researcher. The mentor is Dr. Christine Monroe, who is an assistant professor of chemistry at Ladma College, one of the only institutions in the US designed to exclusively support students, neurodivergent students. As the PI of AIE S-STEM Plus program, Dr. Monroe supports neurodivergent students from low-income backgrounds in computer science and biology through mentoring, professional development, and scholarship opportunities. With over 6 years of experience working with historically underrepresented students in STEM, she's dedicated to fostering inclusive learning environments and helping students build strong academic and professional identities. She's an acting member of the American Chemical Society, serving as a national member of the Chemists with Disability Committee. Like Taylor mentioned, today's discussion will be centered on the unique perspectives that the PIs or mentors and their mentees bring, and especially in highlighting some of the effective approaches that they have found successful in fostering strong mentoring connections. I want to make an announcement to the audience. First, I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know it's a busy time of the semester, yet you took your day to come and join us. So we do appreciate you coming to join us. While we have a dedicated time for Q&A at the end, if at any time you have any questions, please put them on the chat and I'll be able to post them to the panelists as we go. We want to make this session as engaging as possible, and we want everyone to feel included and involved. Like we mentioned, our focus will be on just learning from the mentors and their mentees about the experience in the STEM projects, ways that they have been able to establish and maintain effective mentoring relationship, as well as some of the approaches that they have been used to cater for different needs that the mentees may have. At this point, Hassan, you can stop sharing the screen so that we can have our panelists, and I'll pose the first question to the student. So we'll start by hearing from the student perspective. And to our student, my question is, can you briefly describe your experience as an STEM mentee and how that has shaped either your academic or career goals up to this point? Feel free to highlight any specific experiences or guidance that you've received from your mentors that have shaped your growth. We can start with Kalia.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for having me here. I'm joining from Quito, Ecuador right now. So I would say during my time as an S-STEM scholar, I think one of the biggest highlights that has really helped me, just in my journey overall in university and just as a student, is really having that early exposure to research experience and also just the scientific disciplines. I came into college knowing that I kind of wanted to dabble in biology, maybe environmental studies, but I wasn't exactly sure exactly what that meant for me. And then, once I really got involved with all of the things that our STEM chapter has to offer, and getting that first summer of research in, that really helped me guide, do I, seriously want to consider a career in, research or, in the hard sciences and things like that. And that's what I'm doing here now. So I am at the Central University of Ecuador, and I'm doing zoonotics research. And STEM has definitely helped me get to this point, and I hope to just keep going with it.
Thank you for sharing that, and glad to hear that the exposure to research has opened other opportunities for you to continue with this work. Anastasio?
Yeah, so the program has been, I think, instrumental to my personal success here and just professionally in general. There is a focus on encouraging persistence and fostering that kind of continued interest in the field through outreach opportunities, professional engagement, all that. And a lot of that has gone into why I stayed with the program and with these mentors in particular. I can say with a fair degree of certainty that without the program, I probably wouldn't still be at the school.
Thank you, and I'm glad that you got the support that was provided for you to persist and be here today. From the mentor perspective, my question is, how do you establish and maintain effective mentoring relationship with your mentees? Christine, do you want to start us off, or Jessica?
Sorry, I can go first. So I think that getting students involved in the things that you're passionate about is a really important aspect of building mentoring relationships. I'm really passionate about science outreach, and so, if I know of an event that's happening and I'm planning on going, then I'm like, how can I bring my students with me? And then kind of building that up to say, you can use the knowledge from participating in outreach to then present a scientific poster or present at a conference. But it's really about doing the things that you are already doing and just bringing students along with you.
Thank
I
you.
like that idea that Kristen mentioned, doing what you're already doing and bringing students along with you. I think a lot of us in science, we do science because there's something about it that we really enjoy, that that excites us and interests us, and trying to find ways to share that with students and be authentic about maybe your nerdiness or your geekiness. I think another factor that's really has been important for us at Denison is to figure out ways to better communicate with students, and that might even mean that your S-STEM advisees, you guys have exchanged cell phone numbers. It might mean that they know that they can text you if there's something really important, or they know that I might text them and say, why aren't you at this event? We were expecting you, and by the way, there's even food here, so come on. And I'm not a social media, I'm not really particularly good at that, but our students have exchanged phone information. So we have a get together, and I will just say, can you please start texting everybody and tell them to hurry up and, and get here, or something like that. As well as continually letting them know when you're available to talk, that you're available to talk, and that you can be a mentor who can be a sounding board, not. So Carlia's got this idea. She wants to spend a semester away from Denison. Well, what would that look like? Not just judging that's a good or bad idea, but what would that look like? How could we make that happen? What would be benefits of doing that? And there she is in Ecuador for the whole semester, and she's not falling behind in her sciences. She's going to graduate on time, but it does take planning and trying to. I come from a long line of planners, and so trying to convince students that it's okay to make a plan, even if the plan doesn't work. But if you start with a plan, you can modify it, and maybe that will still help you get where you need to go. And if you don't have any plan, then you're probably never going to get where you might want to go. So I think good communications, being willing to share your interests in your excitement about science, and then helping students plan and be a sounding board for them so they can share their interests and dialogue about what are the opportunities out there and how would I tackle them and things like that.
Thank you both for sharing that. I'll backtrack a little bit and maybe request you to briefly talk about like your S-STEM programs and some of the elements in your mentoring. I know as I was reading your bios, there were different levels and like it was a tiered approach. Can you talk a little bit about how you're approaching mentoring in your programs, the number of students you have and stuff like that?
So at any point in time, we have 12 students. We have more of a, I don't want to say revolving door, but we offer both associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees. So students, the students come for the period of time that they're supported for the grant. We have multiple levels of mentoring. So all of our students are paired with a faculty mentor in STEM, but then we have a cohort that meets once a week where the advanced scholars are meeting with the novice scholars and they're sharing their experiences. And I think that that's really one of the coolest parts about our group mentoring, that when one scholar talks about presenting a poster or doing an internship, then the less advanced scholars are starting to knock on doors and look for mentors or internships, or they're asking, well, how can I present a poster? And so we really try to have that peer mentoring and and inspiration. And then we try to encourage all of our students to participate in at least one, I would say, dissemination activity, whether it's something internal to Landmark or going to a science outreach event or going to a conference. And so we provide a lot of different opportunities and, meeting the students where they're at. And I will also say that I forgot to say this before, but when you are driving in a van with students to an event or spending time with them in that less formal setting, that can really make a difference. That's when, you start to really see, they really start to talk about the different questions that they have. We track how many times our mentors meet with our scholars. And one of the interesting things that we found is that it's those incidental bump in the hallway type of questions that the scholars have that we really want to capture rather than it being those formal meetings. And that really works best for our students. So we've actually asked our mentors to capture those and say, oh yeah, I had a 5-minute meeting with that scholar, because those are the times when the scholar needs you, they'll find you and they'll ask questions. So going off of what Dr. Reddick said, that availability is really key.
Yeah, our S-STEM program, we are just an undergraduate institution, fully undergraduate institution that has bachelor's degrees. We have students, S-STEM scholars in cohorts of 8. We have 3 cohorts right now. Carlia's in the junior cohort. We have sophomores and first-year students. We do some mentoring tailored to their cohort level. And we do academic mentoring, peer-to-peer mentoring, career mentoring, and research mentoring. So, this year, what the juniors talk about in terms of career mentoring is different than the first years. The first year students were just trying to get them, like, let's go over to the career center. Like, let's physically go over there and have a session in that space so that we kind of normalize that that's a space where they can go and ask questions and get assistance. By the time they're juniors, we're like, we've been there, you can go there yourself and you can make an appointment and talk to a career coach. We can also talk about careers or how to start thinking about whether you want to go on and get additional education after your bachelor's degree, and what's involved there. So things are some of it is tailored towards their time in their career as an undergraduate. We also, like Kristen mentioned, I think it's really important to use the more informal opportunities for mentoring. We try to get all 3 cohorts together once a month, and not everybody shows up. And as the administrator, you have to let go of that, and that you just can't get everybody together all the time. But for those who do get together, that's an opportunity to be sitting around a table. And we had one last night, and one student said they were comparing notes about what class they were in, and 2 students discovered they were in the same class. And one student knew that and the other student didn't. And it was just comical, like, oh, well, you sit down front, I know you're there, and all. But ways to make connections and compare notes about their undergraduate experience or about what they're thinking about for the future. All of that is kind of a beneficial, informal mentoring that can happen. There are professors there too. And so you sometimes are getting asked questions that you wouldn't get asked in a normal classroom setting, but things that they're curious about and all. And those are very valuable mentoring experiences, I think.
Thank you both. I'm hearing leveraging both formal and informal opportunities as what both of you are doing. I also hear a spaces for peer knowledge exchange where they are learning from each other. And so it becomes like not a competition, but it's more like, oh, this person in my cohort is doing so and so. I'm interested, maybe, I'm inspired. Then I'm also hearing like community connections where you're bringing them in spaces where they can connect with each other as some variable things that you're doing. All right, those are good insights. Thank you both for sharing. To our students, I know both of the mentors who are actually nominated by students as being amazing mentors. So my question is to the 2 students with us today. what qualities makes your mentor particularly effective? So if you can speak to some of that. I know we had asked that during the nomination form, but from your own perspective, what made your mentor effective in guiding you? You can start with Anastasia.
I think a big part of it is that availability that Dr. Monroe was talking about. Just, almost at any point during the day, you can be in the STEM building and find not only the S-STEM mentors, but kind of just faculty in general. If you have questions, or if you want to talk about a course or a possible career opportunity, just get clarification on the topic, or even if you just heard some interesting scientific news that you want to bring to their attention, it's really easy to just go and find people to chat with, basically whenever the building's open. I think that's a big part of an effective relationship in that regard.
Yeah, and then in terms of my experience with Dr. Reddick, which I feel, communicated very much with her, during our 3 years, almost 4 years together. I would say that it's really communication. Like, I really think that is one of the main focal points, is that consistent communication, and communication also, as Dr. Reddick had mentioned, those questions and those insights that we're going to have beyond, the classroom setting. So, my question would be a lot different, because as a S-STEM scholar coming from the low income background, it really takes a certain person to really understand how can I help, this advisee mentee's needs in a way that, they can't necessarily have their needs met inside of the classroom. And I think that that's really, really important in terms of the mentor aspect. And I think that Dr. Reddick has really, really exemplified that. And I also think that it's really making that, zone of comfortability. I come to her office probably way more than I probably should. And I always seem confused about something, and she always has the answers for it. And it's that level of comfortability and that level of humility that I can go into her office and I can be like, I know that we just talked about this 2 days ago, but I am confused again. Can you help me with this? Who do I connect with? And she's so resourceful. And I think that's just really something that, mentors across the board, like, I just know within S-STEM, and also, just professors in general, they're very resourceful. And I think Dr. Reddick is very resourceful, very knowledgeable, and you really need that type of person also when, you're, in a first gen situation like many of us are. And it's like, how do I do this? Or who do I talk to for this? I unfortunately cannot rely on my parents to help me with this, so I think that really having somebody who, is really hardworking within the university and very knowledgeable in the connections, both within the university and outside of it, I think that is really something that has shaped a really good mentor perspective for me in terms of Dr. Reddick.
Thank you both. And there's a really good question in the chat that I'll post to the mentors. It's about what did those early days or early stages of establishing the mentor-mentee relationship look like, or no? Can you speak a little bit about that and how you're able to build such, a strong network of mentor-mentee?
I'm going to jump in because I just love the fact that I met Carlia before she even came to Denison. She was accepted into the program, and at Denison we have spring visit days for accepted students. And she came, and I communicated with everybody. I'm like, if you guys are coming to campus, let me know. We'll have lunch together, and I can give you a tour. And I took Carlia and her mom on a tour. And we're going through the bio building, and I mentioned that there's a greenhouse. She's like, can we go see the greenhouse? And hardly anybody ever wants to go see the greenhouse. And I'm like, yeah, let's go see the greenhouse. And it's up on the roof. And she was just like, oh my gosh, let's go in all the rooms. And she likes plants quite a bit. And I'm like, you can get a job eventually, like working in the greenhouse. You can get paid. And I connected her later in the summer by email to the professor who does that hiring, and he had already hired for the year, but he kept her name, and I just feel like we got off in a strange way on right away. We found things to connect with, things that we both liked, and I think that was really beneficial for us. And that's serendipity. I don't necessarily say that happens with every one of our S-STEM students, but trying to find some commonality or common interest or connection, it definitely early on can be really valuable. If you know they have a musical talent, or they have or you're from the same town originally, or something like that. All of those little things can help start to build connections that help develop the relationship.
Very well said. I would just add to that I think, we have really small class sizes at Landmark, and I've had, especially the biology students, I tend to have them for several semesters. So it's a little bit less challenging for me to develop those relationships. But for students who are new to our cohort, we just let them know what's going on. If we're recording a video for National Chemistry Week or something, then I'll just say, if you want to come and you want to help out with that, it's optional, but just giving them different opportunities to participate in things in an authentic way. And I think that's, it's a lot easier to develop relationships when you're working towards a common goal, rather than it being this sort of like, I don't know, a forced, awkward sort of, we have to meet and I don't really know what to talk to you about. I mean, I'm always awkward about that in the beginning too. So finding those ways of just inviting students to different activities, getting them involved, and then also, celebrating their successes, even if it doesn't seem like, or how they've contributed. When we recently took students to a poster session, and some of our novice scholars came as well, and things like helping a student find a charger or helping them put up their posters, that alleviates the stress for the person who's presenting the poster, but they're still part of that community. And I just thought it was the coolest thing, because I didn't even have to direct them to say, oh, do this or do that. They were just all jumped in and took on those leadership roles. And then when we came back afterwards, pointing that out and saying, every person that attended this, even if you didn't present a poster, you still helped and you still contributed to that experience.
Thanks both for sharing. Kalia, Anastasia, what's your perspective from the student side? How was those early stages of that relationship?
Sorry, I guess I could start. So I would say, yeah, I think that, as Dr. Reddick had mentioned, like one of those first few interactions that we had, that doesn't always happen. But I think that, the fact that, she, as my mentor, was willing to connect with me in terms of, my personal interest and like who I am as a person, who am I, outside of, just a student at Denison. I think that just remembering those sorts of things really helps, kind of ease, that awkwardness that is absolutely going to come about in those really early stages. I'm glad that we were able to bypass that pretty quickly. But yeah, I think it really is just, this is your mentee and this is your mentor. You guys are a pair for a reason. And I think that, connecting with this person and, really, talking to them outside of, I need you for this specific thing, so deliver me a response. Like, no, it's not always like that. Obviously, there are some aspects of that, but it's also like, hey, like, can I come into your office and like have a quick check-in about you? Can we have a quick like update just about like, how's my, mental well-being, my, physical well-being, how am I doing, transitioning into, this collegiate experience that is, very hard for people, including myself sometimes. And just really in those early days too, just really engaging and really being present, like, not just sitting there and just kind of, hearing everything as background noise, really, wanting to take in the advice that, my mentor is giving and all of the resources that they're offering, because, they're giving me this so that, I can be self-reliant, in the university and outside of the university. And you know, it just is really all about listening and communicating. Yeah.
Yeah, as I think the experience has been similar. A good deal of it is learning how not to shy away from potential opportunities. Maybe you don't think you're qualified. That doesn't mean you're right. There have been a lot of, outreach trips or conferences or potential internship or job opportunities that I know other students in the program have been a little hesitant to take on because, maybe we don't think we have the requisite skill set, or we won't be what the employer is looking for, or the conference isn't exactly in your field of interest. But learning learning from example, honestly, because Dr. Moreau doesn't know how to say no. Learning to take advantage of those opportunities is a very instrumental lesson in the early days.
Thank you all for those insights. I like the human-centered approach where, it's not all about, what's happening in the classroom, but, how about the person's feeling and who are they and all those, experiences. Before we open the floor for Q&A, I'll ask one more question, which is, what happens when a mentor cannot meet all your needs? And this can be from both the student perspective as well as the faculty. So for instance, if a mentee come to your office and they have these needs that, for sure as a mentor, cannot help, what do we do in that case? Feel free to come off mute and let me know how you handle such instances or how you guide students where you feel like, we do know that one mentor may not be everything for the students. So how do we support them so that can be supported holistically?
I think it's really important to be honest with, if a mentee comes to you with some kind of an issue that you don't have the knowledge or capacity to manage, to say, I am not sure, I'm not, maybe I'm not qualified, but let me help you figure out who we do need you to talk to on this campus. There's almost always somebody who has the knowledge or expertise around. And I think one of the advantages, I've been at Denison a long time, so I know a lot of the landscape, and like, oh yeah, I should reach out over here or all. And sometimes I'll ask the mentee to do that directly. Sometimes I'm gonna say, I'm gonna write an email, you're gonna be copied on it. I'm gonna try to get you two people together via email so that you can then go forward. And so finding others to go forward. Sometimes you also you might need to reach out to mentees professors and just say, can you tell me your side of what's going on so that I can better, with more information, talk with this student about what's next, how to approach the problem or whatever. So being willing to reach out, identify why you're contacting that person, and say, can you help me out? Most people do want to help out if they can.
One of the tools that we use, which we adapted from another, I believe, S-STEM program, but it's definitely from the New Mexico Mentoring Institute, is the mentor maps. And essentially what we do is we have students fill them out and identify all of the mentors that are in their different spheres. So mentors that are on their college campus, mentors that are their family mentors, all these different mentors from high school, and just think about how they can leverage those mentors. I tell my students a lot that you want to think about how you can develop a mentor board of trustees, or your own personal board that you can go to. And in many cases, because I'm the PI of our S-STEM, the scholars will start with me as a mentor, and then I'll say, oh, you know what, you would be a really good fit for this person or that person. We're lucky to have a really small campus, and so that helps because as the student starts to, as I start to get to know the students, then I can say, oh, this makes sense for you to have this mentor, that mentor. And one of the things that we really emphasize as well is strengths-based approaches, and recognizing those moments when, I'm really strong in individualization, but my co-PI is really strong in empathy. And so kind of going back and forth with that and saying, this might be a good time for you to jump in and have a conversation with a student. And sometimes having multiple of what are very similar conversations with a scholar can be really helpful because you are taking different approaches to help them to be more comfortable to take advantage of those opportunities, as Anastasia was saying.
Anastasia, Karia, do you want to share about like if you got a mentor and they're not able to meet your needs, what do you do?
Yeah, it is a lot of finding other resources, either on campus or off. It's your mentor probably has connections outside of your institution that maybe they can point you in the direction of something you may not have been able to get at your school or from any of the opportunities offered there.
Yeah, definitely. And I would also, even like to preface with saying, you know, it's also okay for them to not have the answer to everything. And, we gotta give a little bit of grace with that. I think it's great that we had this space of comfortability, that this concern that is, not one that every student has. I'm coming to this person and I'm okay if they don't have the exact answer that I need. But I know, as what Dr. Reddick had said, that this is a reliable person to connect me with other people who might know, or might be able to help me with what I need. And I think that that is really important, especially within our own S-STEM community here at Denison. It's also really getting that early exposure. Here's the Career Center. Here's what research is looking like. Here are people to talk to in terms of, wellness and mental health and things like that. I don't expect Dr. Reddick to be, a therapist and a graduate advisor and, like my token to getting through the research world. Like I don't expect that. But I know that, she's been at Denison for a very long time. She's been other places in the world, studied elsewhere. And there is a lot of weight in that, knowing that somebody has a lot more life experience and has a lot more connections with other people. Utilize that, leverage that to your advantage. This can be the point person. Instead of this being an A to B, this could be an A to B to C, and that could help me as well in growing my own network. So I think that in my experiences, there has been very rare times when she hasn't been able to, directly help me like immediately. Very rare, but she has always been a reliable person and connected me with people who can.
Thank you. I hear a lot of leveraging of networks and resources, even outside the S-STEM project, as being very instrumental. Christine, are you able to share the mentor maps with us? I feel like that would be a good resource that you mentioned. Is it something that is publicly available?
It is.
Okay.
My co-PI is actually on the call right now, and she might be able to pull up the article and send it. She's going to send it to me, so I can share that.
That would be good to share with the participants because I feel like it's a good resource for them to probably explore.
And that was a really good example of what we do in our S-STEM cohort, asking for help and and being able to say, I don't know, or I don't necessarily have the resource right at hand, but I know someone that does.
I think another thing that can be helpful, because like Kristen said, they're working with 12 students at a time. We have a cohort model, is that peers can let mentors know when something is going on with other peers. And that can be really helpful, particularly because we don't always see each other often enough, and we might not know that a student is struggling with something, and a peer can give us a heads up that something's going on, and we can then follow up. And that's sort of another layer of support. Or if we don't know, like we had one of our S-STEM scholars, his mother passed away. And that was really not something that was on anybody's radar. Like, let's be prepared for that to happen. And then, I ended up reaching out to other professors, not even in the S-STEM program. And I was like, culturally, what is appropriate in terms of a response? And people gave me guidance on that, which I really appreciated. And so utilizing sometimes people all over campus to help you figure out how to work with particular students, and if you can get to the point where your students, your S-STEM scholars feel comfortable, giving you a heads up if something's going on, that's helps you build a stronger program overall, a more supportive program overall.
Yeah, I agree. I greatly appreciate all the perspective that you've been able to provide. I wanted to provide an opportunity for our audience to also make comments about, their experience, because this is a peer exchange forum. We want to make sure that if there are other, S-STEM mentors, mentees who are, experiencing these great things in their project, they can also share with the peer. And I see a really great comment on the chat where Solène shared that they offer scholarships to mentors, an academic mentor and a social cultural mentor, because of the many scholars come from the indigenous background. That's super cool. Jamila, are we able to have people come off mute to either ask questions, share their experience, perspective?
Yep. We've updated settings so everyone can come off mute whenever they're ready.
All right, yeah, you can raise your hand or come off mute or put your comment or question on the chat. Again, we want to learn from as many of you as we can about, how all of you are navigating mentoring and the kind of experiences you're having in your projects.
Hi, my name is Lauren Wetzel, and I have a question. We have quite a large group. We have 43 mentors, about 43 mentors, and 20 some scholars. And so I'm the one that had that comment about academic and sociocultural mentors. This is kind of new territory for us. I don't know that there's a template out there for us to follow. And we're beginning this project. It was really hard finding a training program because the mentors are very different. And nobody has time, that wants to be in a long mentorship training program. I still don't have a solution, but I was just wondering, are there links to programs that are out there you would recommend, training programs, or what have you done for your mentors if you offer training, or kind of like what your thoughts are around that? Thank you.
The bandwidth is definitely an issue for mentor training. One of the trainings that both myself and my co-PI recently did was from the Moat Aquarium in Florida. And we went down and participated in the training. They had a resource book. And what was really nice about that training is that it was modular. So you could do the whole thing with mentors, but you could also do, sort of select what's relevant. I think that in that moment, kind of mentor training is also really useful. We tend to just have like set aside time at a lunch and just say, let's all meet together and just talk about some of the challenges that we're facing, and give advice in that way as well. But I'm actually partnering with the Moat Aquarium as well to create a resource for mentor training more specifically for mentoring students in laboratory settings. But I think that the moat resources is a great place to start. And also, I mentioned it before, but the New Mexico Mentoring Institute has a lot of great resources that they have articles that they publish periodically. They have a conference, and that's where we got the mentor map as part of one of their publications. So that's another great resource to just kind of look through and see, what is going to work for your program, because that's another thing. But getting your faculty together and your mentors together and just asking them what they need is a really great place to start as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, we didn't build anything into our S-STEM grant about training mentors. But our institution has a tradition of doing various kinds of professional development related to both teaching and academic mentoring and other kinds of mentoring. And in the sciences, we do another group on campus sponsors a workshop every winter in January before classes start. And so we encourage our mentors to do that. The faculty mentors on our grant, we pretty much during the academic year meet once a month to check in on various things, but there's always a component of our meeting that is a sort of a mentoring check-in, and what do we need to be watching for? Are there students that we have concerns about, and we dialogue about how to work with that student, even though not everybody is the mentor, the direct mentor for that student. And those conversations have been useful conversations as well.
Thank you.
There's also a question from Jennifer. Thanks, Jennifer, on any recommendation for mentoring S-STEM master's level students and additional strategies for graduate students compared to other graduate students. And I think, Jessica, you said your institution is primarily undergraduate?
Ours is 100% undergraduate. So I've not had to add that layer on at all into our programs.
Yeah. Kristen, do you have any insights on that, whether there are, different strategies that work for undergraduate compared to graduate students?
We're also a PUI, so I don't have specific resources. Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Anyone from our audience, maybe who has experience mentoring graduate students and may want to speak to what that experience has been like? Again, feel free to raise your hand or come off mute and let us know.
Mercy, this is Jennifer. I'm the one who asked the question. I also would pose that question to the mentees who are in this space as well, like thinking kind of proactively about supports that may be needed.
I was at a meeting this past weekend for ARA, and I met with a lot of graduate students who had come with their mentors. And one of the things that kept coming up is about connecting them to careers, the career pathway, given that, a lot of them who are presenting, or the ones I got at least to speak to, were in their final years. And so we had a lot of conversations about the kind of job fairs they are bringing to their campuses and how that can be made more intentional so that they are bringing things that on current demand with the type of careers that are, currently on demand, as well as making them intimate so that it doesn't become so overwhelming for the students. I mean, I know that's not really mentoring, but I found those kind of resources and mentoring, thinking about intentional ways of supporting graduate students navigate their job search, and maybe, organizations that they may be looking into. But again, what we can do for us is look for resources that maybe compare undergraduate mentoring with graduate mentoring, and if we find any, we'll be able to share with the participants from today's session. Other thoughts? I think, did anybody mention the program in Florida? I made a note for the New Mexico Mentoring Institute. Or Moat Marine. Oh, thank Jessica for sharing that.
I put the link for the Florida training in the chat, and I can also find the Mentoring Institute link as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other question before we make some announcements?
I have a general question. My name is Sarah Grivion. I'm at Georgia Southern University. We were recently awarded an S-STEM grant in March, so we have just quickly selected our first group of scholars. Do you, whether it relates to mentoring or is peripheral to mentoring, do the faculty mentors that are here on the panel and the program coordinators, do y'all have any advice for a new PI? And that may be a whole separate Zoom session, but.
So I had the joy of inheriting my S-STEM grant the year it was funded, and one of the things that I did was I just, I took my time and took the summer really to go through the materials that had been scaffolded, and that was really useful for me. But I think that, it's something where, take the small steps and build a program that is going to be sustainable, and also leverage your resources. We have really great connections with our career connections office, our academic advisors, our financial aid office, really taking and knowing, what are your roles, and what are things that, you can use your campus partners. But I think that leveraging your campus partners is a really valuable thing. And as you get into it, if you can also leverage your advanced scholars and have them take on leadership roles, then it's sort of, there's all, I don't want to say it becomes a well-oiled machine, because it, in our case, especially working with neurodivergent students, something's always kind of, I don't want to say breaking because that's a bad analogy, but something is always, we always have to be tweaking things, but leveraging all of the things that you have available to you is the best advice. And that can really help you to build a really successful program. And congratulations and good luck.
Yeah, congratulations, Sarah. I would say I would follow up on Kristen's, at least when we were learning about, because we've never had an S-STEM grant until this grant. And so we were learning about it. I was going to these webinars explaining what they were about. And at least at track one, they were talking a lot about, we don't want you to invent a whole bunch of stuff. We want you to use what's at your institution. And I have to frequently tell myself, we're not inventing, but you need to go find out, even for myself, like, what is at my institution? And so going over to the Career Center and saying, what would you recommend if I wanted to bring a bunch of first-year students in? What would you recommend us do as an activity? And then they want you to come in and do stuff with them. So, and then, I talk with we've got some juniors now. What's one thing you would recommend they do in the junior year? Okay, great. Can you help me do that with them? And they're like, yes, we can help you do that. Keeping that in mind, like, you don't have to invent a bunch of stuff. That's not actually what the grant was set up to do, at least in track one. It was more to try to figure out, what does your institution do and how can you actually do it? A lot of times institutions have programs that are sort of under advertised, underutilized. And so if you can use your grant to more purposely make use of those, then you sometimes build up, good karma. We built up some good karma, and then the next thing we know, the Career Center is coming to us and saying, hey, we've got this cool opportunity. We've never done it before. Would you guys like to do it? And I'm like, yeah, let's try it. And it was a totally new thing, and it went very well. And the Career Center, they're really happy. Our students had a good time. And perhaps that will lead to another new opportunity in the future, even as we're doing some traditional things as well.
Thank you both, and thank you to the student panelists as well.
Yeah, thanks for all the insights for both the PIs and the students as well. I personally enjoyed it. I learned a lot. In the interest of time, I'll run through a few announcements. Hassan, if you can put the slide with the upcoming events. We have a session that is coming up on May 1st at 2 p.m. It's part of our evidence-based practices virtual sessions, where we'll learn about understanding student mentoring using the College Student Mentoring Scale Survey. So if you've not registered, please register for that session. Thanks, Tara, for putting the link on the chat. We also have our S-STEM Scholars meeting this year in San Diego. We have the students that have been selected to participate. Just a reminder for you to please register. The registration deadline is coming up this Friday, so make sure that you are registered by then so that you can participate. Also, there's the link to the website for more details about the event and also for future events. Finally, before you exit, you receive a short survey through a pop-up box that we ask that you take a few minutes to let us know about your feedback about this session. We want to understand your experience, and so that in the future we can maybe improve on anything that you suggest or recommend to ensure that future sessions are engaging and valuable to you. Again, Tara, thanks for putting that information on the chat. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming, for engaging with us, our panelists, my team at QEM, as well as our AAAS partners. Thank you so much for your time and being here. For all the participants, for taking your time out of a busy, semester to just be here with us. We do appreciate your insights, your questions, as well as your contribution. And thank you again. You can always stay connected with us. Those are our handles for our various social media platforms. You can also join our mailing list by clicking on the link on the PowerPoint slide. We'll share those with everybody after this meeting. So stay connected and everyone have a great rest of the day. Thank you.